Hello and welcome to the Trail Network podcast. I'm Leah Yingling, and this week I'm joined by my very good friend Lorna Mann, all the way from London. According to Lorna herself, she's a trail runner, mountain lover, park run enthusiast, cutoff chaser, and OCC dreamer. Lorna and I became acquainted through Lululemon Further this past year, and she has since left an indelible mark on my life. In this episode, we chat through her journey to trail running, what it's like to chase down a 5-year goal, some successes and failures along the way, and why unapologetically supporting others in the sport matters. This episode is really special. I hope you all enjoy. Let's get to it. All right, welcome to the Trail Network podcast, Lorna Mann. Lorna, it's so great to have you here with us.
Thank you for having me. I don't think I'll stop smiling. This is a dream come true.
Oh, Lorna, you're just the best. I think we've now known each other or like at least seen each other in each other's presence about over 2 years now. So I think I first heard your voice on the UTMB course in 2023 on the climb out of Les Houches, and your voice is undeniable, and it'll be the loudest one that you hear out on a course because I tell everybody you are everyone's biggest cheerleader, and I think that describes you in a nutshell, and I think you're everybody's biggest fan. So I'm so happy to have you here to talk to us and just share a little bit of your spark with the world.
Oh, thank you. Hopefully it lights up. We'll see what we can spread.
So yeah, for our listeners, Lorna, can you share a little bit about where you're calling from, a little bit about yourself, and really who is Lorna Mann?
You got it. Thank you. I am Lorna Mann. Everyone always describes me by my full name. It is like literally how I am known, and it's the funniest thing in the world because I'm Lawns. I'm calling in from London in the UK. I have been born and bred in London, so I'm a city girl at heart, city girl at my roots, but a trail girl at heart. I think that's how I would describe myself first and foremost. But I'm also a late runner. I discovered running when I was 29 and I'm 41. So late to finding out what its magic is. And I think that's kind of me. Have I missed anything? How would Leah describe Lorna?
How I do describe you to everybody is you're the best friend that you didn't know that you were missing. And you just enter someone's life and make them feel extremely special, extremely wanted, extremely loved within an instant. And I think in my lifetime, it's been very hard to find people like that. And luckily for me, I've gotten to spend a lot of time with you in the last year, from UTMB to all that led up to Lululemon Further, which we'll dive into. But I really hope everybody that's out there is listening can find a Lorna in their life because it's really special.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. That means the world.
So Lorna, you said you were kind of like a late bloomer in the running scene. You got your start running marathons, and then recently, like not too recently, you've gotten involved in the trail scene. How did you get to trails, and how did you become what I would consider like the biggest fan of trail running?
I am unashamedly. Trail running makes me smile, it makes me giggle, it makes me laugh, and you know when I'm in love with something or someone because I will just not stop laughing. So consider that an apology, but an unapologetic apology. I went from zero to everything with marathon running. I was dared by my first ever boss, or my second ever boss, sorry, because I was an unhealthy gal in PR in the film industry, and we were sat around a bar, ironically, and he said, "You'll never ever run lawns, like you'll never run a marathon." And I was like, "Challenge accepted." And so within 9 months, I went from zero to running the London Marathon for the first time in 2013. And it truly did change my life. It might have been what could have been seen as an arrogant bet, but it turned my life around, because it made me discover like this true power of what running could unlock for me. Not everybody feels that way about running, and that's totally fine. running isn't for everybody, but it was this hidden gem that I didn't know I needed. That was the best friend that I wish I had a lot earlier than I'd found it. I went from running one marathon to running six in the space of 5 years. And they were all road. They were all road. And I run the London Marathon and run New York Marathon, and I never need to run either of them again. I love them dearly, but no, we're done. But through that challenge of finding running and finding that I could run a long way, a marathon is a long way, I found myself hungry for more and hungry for something different, because when you run a road marathon, you're surrounded by 50,000 people. Like, they are these big, especially a world major, which is all I know. You're surrounded by hundreds of thousands of people, either, cheering you on or running alongside you. And the first thing anyone does when you say you did it is, what was your time? And I'm like, please don't ask me, because it was not a 2 hour 30 marathon. It was a 5 hour marathon. And whilst I know that to be okay now, in early 2000, like in 2013, when I was doing this for the first time, it didn't feel that way. The running scene was quite competitive, and you were only ever seeing, social media was only ever feeding you, the news was only ever feeding you, be fast at this thing. So I kind of felt like I was failing a little bit of myself, and I didn't want to feel that way about running. It changed my life. I didn't want to feel like a failure in something that gave me so much. And so I was looking for something else, and I didn't quite know what it was until one day, and I will never, ever, ever apologize for being an advocate for the power of the doom scroll. But I discovered that someone went to the mountains, and I'd never even touched foot in the mountains. And I saw someone holding up a medal with Mont Blanc in the background. I didn't know it was Mont Blanc at the time, but she said she'd just run this gorgeous 10K in Chamonix. And I was like, what is this? Signing up. And I was so influenced, because I was like, why not try? And I think that has been now my mantra with my running, is that from that 10K in late June, as part of the Marathon de Mont Blanc weekend, in 2016, I think that was, I slowly but surely just started saying by roads and high trails, and I've never looked back since, really.
That's so incredible. And yeah, what a journey to just go from roads to the trails and truly finding your home on the trails. I think a lot of people can relate to that feeling of just really feeling like themselves, feeling accepted, and wanting to get away from just like the hyper competitive nature of other spaces that they find themselves in. Lorna, something that I've loved about you is you're not afraid to talk about your goals. You're not afraid to set lofty goals and like give yourself a timeline for that goal. So it's like the second you saw anything about a trail race in Chamonix, you kind of set your mind to doing it and you got it done. And often there's some successes along the way. There's some failures. Can you talk a little bit about how you've navigated goal setting in your trail running trajectory and the successes and failures that you've kind of hit along the way? Because I think you're somebody that deals with those with such grace, and you're not afraid to admit when you failed and what those lessons learned are. And you're not afraid to get back on the horse whenever you do have failures. So yeah, can you share a little bit about those experiences that you've had?
Of course, thank you for asking. Because I laugh and I sigh, because I'm like, oh, geez, Louise, there's been a lot of downs, but there's a lot of ups to come. And I think what the joy of finding running, not late in life. I'm not late in life. I'm in the middle of it, hopefully, fingers crossed. But coming to it later has given me a wonderful sense of like perception now, especially as I've like moved solely into this gorgeous trail space. It's like, just have the adventure, not necessarily like think of what the adventure is, not a time goal, not a who knows what kind of goal. For me, I look at how I approach my race diary, how I approach my adventure diary is thinking just that.
Mm.
What adventures can I have, and what parts of the world can I see? And what can I experience whilst doing them? Because I'm not out to podium, and I'm not ever going to podium. And that experience at the back of the pack is one of the most enlightening ones that I've ever experienced, and continue to do so. I've made some of the best friends out there because we're out there on our feet for a long old time. So I will always approach things with that view of what's this going to bring? What extra is this going to bring to my life? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm human, and there are times where I think I can do this in X amount of time. Like that, always that little devil on my shoulder does creep in. And I had it recently, actually. I ran my first ever, hopefully, and why don't I dive straight into a big goal that I've got coming up, because it will give it a lot more it'll give
Accountability.
it a lot more context, exact, and accountability and context. But I dream, having been the world's biggest trail fan, thank you, on a little t-shirt, I want to run OCC. I love this 50k distance. It is a wonderful day out for me, and I just had a wonderful day out at the weekend. But running OCC to me is not reachable just yet. I can't make that distance and that elevation and those climbs, those relentless, gorgeous climbs. I can't do it within the cutoff. It's just not there for me yet. I'm a couple of hours off, but I want to reach and I want to go. And I feel like everybody does belong on those trails and should celebrate that OCC finish or that CCC or whatever it is for them. So I am reaching, I am training as hard as I can, but it's still a little bit there. So I thought I'll try and get my stones. For those that don't know, you have to do UTMB qualifying races, and some vary in difficulty and length. You get certain amounts of stones for certain different races. And I tried this year. I entered into UTS, which is Ultra Trail Snowdonia in Wales. I had never been before, and I thought, I've run in mountains. I can do this. I can't. Turns out, spoiler alert, I really, really can't.
You chose one of probably the hardest races on the entire UTMB calendar.
Yeah, and I didn't know that, because I just looked at the distance, the elevation, the time, and I thought I could do it. I thought I could do it. And it was probably the world's hottest day, and being a gal from London, I am not used to blazing sunshine. I am not used to rocky climbs. I am not used to 800 meters to climb in the first 4K. I do not know that in miles and feet. Please forgive me. But I just froze. I froze up on the top of the summit of Snowdonia, and I was like, I just can't do this. Like, this is really hard. And I'm on my hands and knees, and I am cursing. I'm cursing at myself. I'm cursing at people. I'm cursing at the weather. I'm just wishing I was in the Alps. I was like, the Alps are so much easier than here. And whilst I can laugh about it now, when I looked at my watch, I could just see my average pace going lower and lower and lower, because I was struggling. And I'm like, I've got an aid station and a cutoff to reach with that aid station, but I just won't get there in time to finish in this qualifying time. I won't get my stone today. And I had a little cry. And I got down to the aid station eventually, after many, 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 many more curses and scrambles, and making a lot of people smile whilst I was doing it, at least. But I got to the aid station 90 minutes after the cutoff, and I was smiling my heart out. And the volunteers there, they said, "Are you okay?" And I was like, I'm having a great day now. But I've had my tantrum. I know I'm not going to be classified as a finisher, but I'm going to carry on. And they were like, "Are you sure? Like, because you okay? Like, it's a, you don't have to, you won't get your stone, bloody, bloody, blah." And I was like, it's not about that. It's actually about celebrating the fact that I did this hard thing, that I got over the tantrum, that I made that mountain my own, and it didn't need an arbitrary cutoff. I don't need a stone to say I finished this race. And the cutoff was 5.5 hours, and it took me 7, and I smiled my whole way through the rest of it. I think it took me an extra 4 hours after leaving that aid station. And don't get me wrong, I left the aid station and I was knee deep in boggy mud, and there was slate to climb down, and more adventures were had. But I truly, as much as I still want to reach for those goals, they weren't happening for me. And in the moment, you can either choose to suffer in those moments, or you can celebrate. And I chose to celebrate, because I had climbed so far, and I had gone such a long way. It's a very long drive from London to get there. I'm not going to give it up just for a time. So I had the time of my life instead.
That is,
And that's
oh, that's one of my favorite stories because I think it just showcases who you are when you set goals and that you really just go vigorously after them and you don't give up. And your perspective is just one of celebration. And I think it's really easy, especially when you're competing in ultras, just if you're not having your day, it's pretty easy just to drop out of a race. You're like, oh, there's another day, there's another race. I'll have my day at the next one. But I think what your story showcases is like you're not having your day, but you can still do it. And I think there's so many lessons to be learned on those tough days like that. Like when you're in the depths of it, when you're, you carry on, you're in the bogs, you're muddy, you're tired, you're exhausted, you've already had tantrum 1, 2, and 3 of the day. What are you telling yourself to get you to the finish line whenever the stone is out of the picture, but you know that you can still do this?
totally. And I think that's the thing is that I want to still do it. I wanted to do it. And I have to remind myself as a recreational runner, like I kid with friends, I'm like, I'm training like an elite to come last. Like I'm going to be at the back of the pack because that's my ability and that's the fullest of my ability. But I opted in to do it. It's not my
Mm,
job. It's not my profession. This is meant to be fun. And I paid good money to get there. So I might as well make the most of it. It's not about the money, like it's one of those things that I opted in and it was something that I had to sit down in my race at the weekend and just wanted to sit down. It was like, it's beautiful. I was in the Kent countryside in the UK and a guy passed me and he's like, "You okay?" I was like, "I'm absolutely fine." I said, "I'm having a bit of a toughie." Like I was having again one of these tantrums that happens every time you go long. And I was like, "But I paid to do this, mate, so I'm gonna just live with it."
mm,
And those lows, like I can laugh about them today, but my low at the weekend, it lasted maybe about 3 hours. Like it
mm.
was a long old death march, but I was in the middle of nowhere. So I'm like, I need to go somewhere with this. I need to sit and let it be. Um, and I will tap into either like you opted in to do this or what would someone like you, Leah, do? And like you would keep battling through and to just shine a like to kind of flip this. It's like I'm so lucky that I'm surrounded by people like you that just drive me to go forwards because you doing your best inspires me to do my best. And it's circular. We all feed off each other in this gorgeous sport.
It's so true. It's so true. And something I love about you, Lorna, is just your ability to celebrate not only your successes, but I've never met anybody that celebrates the success of other people as well. And that'll be the front of the pack all the way to the back of the pack. You're celebrating everybody. You're pulling a story from everybody. And I think sometimes we see it almost polarized. Like people at the back of the pack don't really like love or get as jazzed about the people at the front of the pack and vice versa, but you're there for it all. And like you mentioned, you're pulling and drawing experiences from the whole gamut, which is really special. Yeah, what would you say like draws you in whenever you're thinking about the whole spectrum of the front of the pack to the back of the pack? Because yeah, you celebrate it all, and that's really special and unique to see in my perspective.
Oh, thank you. I mean, it comes from my road running background, actually. I was lucky enough to meet someone who is a mutual friend of ours, Charlie Dark, who is the founder of Rundem Crew,
Mhm.
which is London's like primary first. Like Charlie started what would be considered crew culture, especially in road running scenes. Um, I experienced a cheer zone on my first London Marathon without knowing anyone. And it didn't matter, like everyone that passed through, and I didn't know this at the time, I didn't know who they were, but they celebrate elite to the last person. And that last person might be out there for 9, 10, 11, 12 hours. Who cares? They are there to see everyone through. And it as I got more familiar with Charlie and Rundem, I would go and I would support. And if I was not running myself a race, whatever race it might be, you were there from beginning to end, the best that you could, and you gave your all. You gave your all to the first, and you gave your all to the last. And it's something that I think is it's our calling as runners and as celebrators of sport to really celebrate everyone that comes through. And I hope that I have brought that to trail running, because especially for UTMB inspires me. Mont Blanc is one of the most beautiful mountains in the world, and that tour is something that just feels magnificent to me. And anyone that even attempts it, I think, are superheroes and deserve their own Marvel superhero series, because that's just who you are in my eyes. And I want to be up there, and I will always put myself on a hill, and I want to see you climb because I think that's knowing what that feels like. I don't know what it feels like. All of our experiences are individual, but the climbs are the hardest.
Mhm.
The ups are always harder. Well, I find downhills harder, but up is where I think you show your grittiest self. So I want to celebrate that grittiness. It's when you think your lungs are empty, let me fill them up. So that's why you'll find me trailside from front to end. And there's nothing better than those few hours just watching everyone come through.
Yeah, and I would add, you're not stationary when you are on the trail side front to end. Lorna, you are up and down, you're screaming, you're engaged. Uh yeah, what gives you the motivation to do that? Because I there was a video from UTMB this year of you watching and cheering for Mike climbing out of Les Houches in the same spot where I saw you last year. And I swear every time I watched this video, I was in tears because I was like, Lauren is just the sweetest human being alive. And the second you hear your energy out there, it fills you up and it gives you that extra gear. And for Mike this year, he was already having a tough day when he saw you there. And just the moment that you guys shared, like, was special for me to look at in video form, but it's really special to experience it in person too.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I know what it feels like to get that. And I
Mm-hmm.
know what it feels like to need it and not have it. And I
Mm.
think that's the one thing that's like not missing from trail running for me, because trail running gives me so much more, but it's damn lonely. And I think there is a reason why we go into the loneliness of trail running, especially ultra trail running, because you want that quiet time, that reflection time. You want that challenge of sitting with just yourself. But sometimes you just want a little bit of a cheerlead. Sometimes you don't get me wrong. And there are some people that don't want it, but
Yeah.
I don't necessarily always give them that choice.
You're getting this regardless.
Yep. But hopefully it gives something. And this sounds really, I don't know if narcissistic is the right word, but watching those videos back, when I see those smiles back when I've just yelled someone's name, I'm like, I hope that, well, it just looks so genuine and looks so needed, whether it's front, middle, back of the pack.
Mm.
To feel seen when you're doing something so hard can mean the world and can make a difference to your day. And it doesn't matter if that's running or not, even if you
Mhm.
just smile at the person that's giving you your coffee, or like you just smile at someone who's getting off the bus or the train with you on the way to work. I think that it makes such a difference when you feel seen in a stranger's eyes. So that's why I hope it adds a bit of light.
Oh, it definitely does. And fortunately for me in the last year, I got to really engage with you day after day after day at Further. And something I want the audience to know is you ended up on the project with Lululemon Further in March, and that actually wasn't even part of your job description. It was never something that you were supposed to be involved with from the start. Can you talk a little bit about your role at Lululemon, but then also how you were able to get on a project like Further and be involved in the way that you were? Because I think when all 10 of us reflect back on Further, we all wouldn't have had the experience that we had without seeing you every single lap.
Thank you. Oh gosh, we'll come to that in a moment. But oh, my I get to give you a little bit of background of, like, I am a recreational runner. I have a day job, and for 20 years of my life, I didn't go to university. I went straight from high school into work at 17 years old, just turned 18. And I entered into the film industry. I entered into film, like promoting films. And I did that for 20 years. So I had a career, and it was the biggest, best career ever, and still is, don't get me wrong. But, I traveled the world. I went to the Oscars. I did really wonderful, glamorous things, all in aid of promoting movies. Um, which is amazing. And it is one of the most like special jobs that doesn't even sound like a job. But after 20 years, I was finding myself out of love with something that was on paper someone's dream.
Mm.
So I had to just let it go. I just was like, this isn't feeding my soul, especially as I'm getting older. I'm finding movement. I'm finding this freedom in the outdoors. It's like, this just doesn't really align with who I want to be as I grow older. I also really don't want to be resentful of a world that is so wonderful to so many. So 2020 came about, and we all know what happened in 2020. But in February, I left that world and had this wonderful break of reflection, before forced into reflection through the lockdowns that we had. And what I realized is that I wanted to work somewhere that really did give me the freedom and the space to be myself. And who I was someone that celebrated movement and found a different life in movement. And I knew of Lululemon through being friends with people like Charlie. So I thought, I'm going to just try and see if I fit in here. So I went for an open interview to be an educator in a store. And I'd never worked in retail before, ever. I had only ever had this one career in film PR. So off I went in my finest Lululemon. I was like, I'm going to find the most expensive items I've got, and I'm going to wow them with what I've got. And I got the job on the shop floor, and I learned a new trade. I learned a new skill set, which was being in retail. But I knew that I wanted to be in marketing, but maybe I could be in marketing for Lululemon. So what's great about the brand and what's great about the team that I had, the leaders that I had, is they were like, if you've got a goal, you'll say it out loud and we'll support you. But you have to get there yourself. So off I went. I'm like, I'm a girl in PR. Don't you ask me to make friends and connections, because that's what I used to do. And I will never lose that essence. So I was lucky enough to just make my connections and was invited in to be a part of the team, the marketing team in Europe. And what I was given as a special project was to help support us going into launching footwear for women first. So we had this amazing moment, which really and truly lit me up, because I was like, wow, like I feel seen. I feel seen in this way, because they're making shoes for me. I am one of those Lululemon guests. You know, I am their customer base, and I felt finally like I could live it head to toe and feel my best, be my best, and they're talking about running. It's amazing. Like it's such a wonderful moment for the brand. And what that meant is that I was introduced to a whole new world of the team. There was a new team to get to know, from, you know, worldwide side. And I will come to work fully as myself. So I am this passionate runner. I am this trail runner. I am a fan of the sport. And if you ask me, what were the race results? Who you inspired by? I will list them off, because that's just that's what I absorbed. And the team that brought Further to life saw that light in me. They were like, this gal gets it, and we need people that will get it, basically understand the magnitude of what we were trying to do with Further, be excited by it, and support in the way that like only those that get it would. So when I came back from a holiday and said, like, I really don't want Further to just be something that I witness. I want Further to be something that I'm a part of. The leaders on the team said, well, tell the team, like, and it sounds easy, but it's really hard to put yourself out there, because they could have just said, thanks, but no thanks. You live here and this is happening over there. But when they saw that potential in me, and they saw that enthusiasm in me, the door was opened and off I came. But what was given to me as a task was to putting together our training camp, which was the first time that we properly met one-to-one in person in October last year, which feels like it was 10 minutes ago and 10 years ago at the same time.
It
But
was 1 year ago. It's mind-blowing.
What it meant to me is that I was like, I'm back in my old world. I've got these 10 amazing women in front of me, and I'm going to put their schedule together, and I'm going to get them from across the world, and I'm going to put their day together, and I'm going to make sure they're eating, and I'm going to make sure that they've got enough clothes to wear, and I'm going to make sure that they feel loved and welcomed. And that's what I used to do. And I was like, I found my home. I found my people. And that was really the end of that. It was the start of it was the end of, what was I going to say? It's the end of reaching for my calling, I guess, at work, and the start of something wonderful. But Further was one of the most special things in the world, and I have never felt more guilt falling asleep knowing that you were out there, and that is what, especially you were out there.
Especially me,
It was
who did
like,
all of my running at night.
like I literally must have slept for about 2 hours a night because it's like I can't do this journey and know that you're out there. So thank you, thank you for getting me out.
Oh, you know that meme where it's like the guy holding the sign? Like that is how I think about you at Further. You were just always holding the sign for like whatever lap we were on, whatever milestone we were hitting. You were that always present person that was there to celebrate whatever small milestone it was that we were hitting. Like you were celebrating it and you were part of it. And I think I told my mom going into Further, I was like, you're going to love Lorna. She's going to be your best friend by the end of the week. And I think when she left it, she's like, Lorna's probably the most special person I've ever met in my life. And I was like, see, mom, that's exactly how I felt about her too. From like the second I met you at Whistler last year, putting that whole team camp together, it was so special. And I can't believe it was only a year ago now because memories we made there and just like the human connection that you were able to facilitate, just being the natural person that you are was really special.
Thank you, and shout out to Mama Sue. I love Mama Sue. Everyone needs Mama Sue in their life.
Oh yeah, she speaks about you, asks about you like every single week. So huge Lorna fan as well, as we all are.
This episode is brought to you by Osprey. I see Osprey everywhere, as I'm sure you do too. Whether it's luggage, kids carriers, or running packs, Osprey is the one-stop shop for adventure. My current favorite for backpacking is the Aura LT50 for lighter weight, multi-day overnight trips where comfort and ventilation are critical. It has an anti-gravity suspension that delivers a weight-defying fit that seamlessly envelopes your back and hips. Talk about comfort. The pack also has easy-to-use side pockets, trekking pole attachment, and integrated rain cover. And it's made with recycled materials. Head over to osprey.com and click on their tool, Pack Finder, to find the perfect pack for you.
I didn't even touch on this at the beginning of the episode, but you are very recently coming off of a 50K race this past weekend. Congratulations. That was the Kent Downs 50K. Is that right?
Yep. Yep.
And I read your Strava recap about it saying it was the hardest last 15K of a race that you've ever done.
Yes.
Talk about what made it that way and how that whole experience was for you.
Oh, so what I love about ultra trail running is that I could say I've done 350Ks in my life. Not one of them is the same, and you cannot compare. It is literally trying to compare pasta and curry. Like you just can't. You could. They're not the same thing. Like, and they will never be the same thing. And they're two of my favorite meals. But I'm like, they are two of my favorite meals, but they couldn't be more different. So going in, some folks were like, are you going to try and beat your time from the summer? I was like, absolutely not, because I've got 1,000 meters to climb. That one I had 39 meters to climb, would recommend it to anyone. It was the flattest trail race I've ever done. But I was going out thinking, this is my opportunity to see, can I do it? Can I do some more elevation over this 50K, knowing that it's autumn, it's going to be darker towards the end of it. I've never run in the dark. Just let's see what the new challenge is. Like, will I be okay out there? And the joy of it being in Kent is my mum and dad live very close, and my dad was sending me messages going, just stop wherever you want. I'll find you. I'll find the blue. Like, don't worry. It's okay. I'll find you wherever you want to be on the trail. He's the worst enabler for a DNF, and I've not let him yet. But you get those messages. But there was a comfort value in knowing I was always close to home. So off I went. I was not up a mountain somewhere. I was close to home, and if I was really and truly struggling or really and truly empty, I could get home get to mum and dad quite easily. Anywho, I finished. Spoiler alert, it's a loop. And it's so funny. I thought of you and Mike because my little 50K loop really looks like the UTMB loop. And I will share this with you. I was like, it's my own UTMB. If I kind of twist it on its side, it looks the same. But what I have learned is that I love the first 25K of anything. First 25K is the best in the world. You just feel like you can do anything. and then bam, I hit some kind of wall, whether I'm hungry, tired, whether the weather turns. And in the UK, the weather can turn in an instant. And that's what it did. Basically, my mood turned first, and I just was like, I'm done, I'm exhausted. And then maybe half an hour later, sideways rain just came at me. You know, there's a scene in Forrest Gump where like the rain is coming up from like all angles. It wasn't that bad, but it felt like it was. But for the 900 meters of elevation that I had to climb, 500 of that came in the last 6 miles. So I was, every time like I had to look up, I was like, I'm gonna have to come down this. And it was just damn hard. And we're getting towards the end of the day, which means we're in single file territory and you don't really see many other people. And if you do, you don't. Basically, if you do, you're hallucinating them because they just don't exist. Like you're kind of in your zone. You don't really overtake one another until you can finally see the finish. That's kind of the back of the pack mentality here in this scenario anyway. And the rain was coming and going, and we were getting head torches out because we didn't know if it was going to be like pitch black in a second, because who knows, it's the UK and it can just do that. And I'm like, I just don't think I'm done with hills. And it was one of the most like challenging finishes when you're already spent, I guess, is kind of, and you must feel that way when you've done that Valacine climb at UTMB. And I was like, this is what I was going through. And Leah, I was thinking of you and Mike because I was like, this isn't Valacine. It's okay. It was one of the things I was saying, like, it's not Valacine.
It's not Valacine. Oh, but I mean, each race like that, it's tricky in its own way, and it can feel like your own personal Valacine at any given point in time. And gosh, it's going to make Valacine be really special whenever you do make it to OCC in a few years. You're gonna know you're in the home stretch, and whatever challenge is ahead of you, you know you'll be able to conquer it.
You know what I mean? That's why I want to do OCC. I don't get that climb. I get a really nice one. I get Argentier up rather than Valacine round. I'm so excited.
I wish during UTMB last year when they did the OCC finish, which is what they did this year too.
Nice.
And
yeah,
I do miss the old UTMB way up to Corrientes and over. And yeah, I'm a baby when it comes to the routes and all the little punchy climbs that happen in the last finishing stretch. But I know you'll be hitting that section with pure joy. And we should talk about La Floria. So
yes,
La Floria holds a special place in your heart. Chamonix in general holds a special place in your heart. I actually got to encounter you on my way up to La Floria this summer when you were heading there as well. Yeah, talk a little bit about that spot and maybe describe it to the listeners, because it's one of my favorite spots in the world, and I know you share the same feeling.
I think, thank you. Chamonix has my heart, and like the biggest goal in the world is I will retire to Chamonix. I will get there, and that will be home, and you're all welcome. Everyone is welcome. What I love about La Floria is you can see it. I will always stay in the same hotel in Chamonix, and it's by the Savoy landing field, for those that know it. What I mean by that, for those that don't, you have paragliders in Chamonix, and you come through to this gorgeous like open space. But if you just kind of look up, maybe 45 degrees up, there's a little white flag in the distance, and it means that La Floria is open. And I only recently discovered that that little flag that's what it meant. And it's just this little magic hut that is maybe a third of the way up that climb, up to La Flagère, which is the last climb. You are on your descent, no matter what race you do at UTMB week. Flagère is the top point. You will always pass La Floria. But La Floria is a chalet that is covered in wildflower and is the brightest colours that you will ever see perched in the middle of nowhere. Basically, you are up a hill. And folks are often like, what's the word I'm looking for? Tricked into thinking it's an easy climb. La Floria, so, you get the mountain life really easily. It's only 250, 300 meters up. That's not a little climb for anyone. And that climb is not a little climb either. So I think you are tricked, and you might well resent that climb when you get up there, but it is impossible to not fall in love with the view and the place and the people when you get there. And they have 2 house dogs, and they are the most like sneaky little, I want to be fed every minute of every day dogs that just make me smile when I get up there too. So, but La Floria is also somewhere that, as those that I admire so much come through, you see that relief, but also you see what's come behind them. Doesn't matter what race, or even if they're not racing, to get to La Floria and on your way down means you've done something. So it's like a really wonderful place for me to just celebrate the awesomeness that's trail running.
It's so true. And there's often one of the friendly house dogs that's laying in the trough on a hot day, like vertically taking up the entire trough. And I think that has to be probably one of the most photographed dogs in Chamonix because it's so picturesque every time he's just cooling off. Got the mountains in the background, the beautiful flowers, all the colorful umbrellas. And it's such a cool spot. And I can 100% agree with what you said. It's one of those spots where you're like, oh, it's a short distance up the hill and it's not that bad of a hike. And then you start doing it and it's pretty brutal, but it's all worth it when you get up there. You get your slice of pie, you get your coffee, you get your little soda, and just taking in all the adventures that are happening and the people that you get to meet up there too. Everybody wants to like engage about what their adventures are that day, where you're coming from, where you're going. And I think it's just this really special community spot too.
I agree with that for sure. The lemon pie is the best thing in the world. I
Oh,
dream of
that's
it.
what I got. Oh, that's so special. Yeah, and you had a sabbatical this past year and you got to spend some time in Chamonix as well. Can you talk a little bit about what you did on that sabbatical and maybe encourage others out there who are in similar positions to kind of follow in your footsteps to do the same?
Thank you. I used to wear the fact that I would never take my paid time off with a badge of honor. I was like, I don't need a break. Like especially in my past world. And in this new world and in this new wonderful business, Lululemon, once you've been in the business for 3 years, you can take an extra 3 weeks unpaid leave. I wish it was paid. It was unpaid leave. But it was an opportunity that I just felt I couldn't pass up. And I didn't even blink of an eye when I was like, if I was going to do this, I'd want to be in the mountains. And there's only one mountains for me at Chamonix. There's nowhere else I'd rather be. So off myself and my partner went and we had an adventure of a lifetime where we covered more than 100 miles and we covered more elevation than UTMB, and we thought we can do this. And we just walked. We were walking our miles away, but we'd never seen so much of one valley. You think we stayed in one place for 3 weeks, but we saw more than 100 miles of it. We was never really, the only thing we did in repeated, our rest days were La Floria hikes. That's so a few days. But what it did for me was really and truly allow myself to kind of distance myself from holding on to things to define myself and make more memories. It's like when you're on your own terms and you're not against the clock and you're not being paid for that time, whether it's PTO or not, it's different. You live your life in a very different, more fulfilling way because you're like, this is the only time that is really and truly mine. And 3 weeks is a very long time, but it's also a really short time. You can save the money, but you'll never get that time back. And I now think, kind of want it every year. And, maybe I will, maybe I won't, who knows? But I think taking a long break can do wonders for the soul. And I've already planned next summer's I want a 2-week vacation next summer, and spoiler alert, it will be in Chamonix. And I want to go and just try and discover a little bit of the Swiss side. I didn't even see the Swiss side of the mountains. So that's what we might well try and do, more adventures. And it's really given me a new perspective on what taking time off could be for me, which is just freeing, really, more than anything. A bit like yourself, Leah, right? I think you've experienced it too, where you're like, actually,
yeah, it's
I can define myself again.
Totally. And it almost becomes addicting, like you mentioned. I can't imagine my last 2 summers without having a 3-week break in them. From the one year, it was a leave of absence from work. And then this past year, it was time between jobs. But I was just telling somebody the other night, there's something very different about that type of time. You've got, no restrictions, no true responsibilities. And yeah, it makes you be a lot more mindful with your time, but then also with the people you're sharing that time with. I look back on those memories the past 2 summers of just feeling like those are some of the most special moments in the variety of relationships that I hold, because I think I wasn't carrying anything else with me at that time. And it just let me truly be. And I remember following your Chamonix sabbatical last year and just feeling those same emotions for what you were experiencing that time. And it felt really similar to how I felt too. And I think, in the hustle and bustle of life, it's really easy to lose perspective of like just the slow moments sometimes.
Nothing slows you down more than being in the mountains. So do
Yeah.
it.
It's special. Yeah. And we will probably see you in Chamonix next summer. We know where to find you.
100%.
Yeah. So Lorna, in life, in running, what's next for you? I know I don't often like to think about like you just finished one race and then people are always asking like what's the next race on the calendar? But I think in terms of just like running and your goals and life and your goals, yeah, what's on the calendar?
Well, you can always ask me what's next because I have 3 more races booked
Oh my
in.
goodness.
um, I am trying to make, like, I'm forcing 50K to be my distance. So I have another 50K in 10 weeks at home on Kent trails again. And that is another challenge because I will be running in the dark. But, I've just got to try. If I'm going to do OCC, and I will do OCC in a time, I've kind of given myself until 2028-ish. That was 4 years from this
I love
summer.
that.
Like I can do it by the time I'm 45. If I do it in 14 hours, which is the cutoff, 14 and a half hours, I'll be finishing in the dark. So I need to get comfortable with being in the dark. And I can get comfortable 5 years in advance or 4 years in advance. So
Totally.
it takes time to do that. But what's next? I will always, and it's funny, I have a coach that supports me with my running training. And she said, just sit still. Like, I know you're hungry for the next thing, but please sit still this week because your toes hurt and your legs hurt and you'll get tired. And I'm like, yes to all of the above, but I really want to do something else. That's just my nature. And that's, what setting running goals for myself does for me is makes me feel more alive. So there will be more of that, I'm afraid. And I'm actually really excited because tomorrow, we are recording this on a Monday, and on Tuesday, entries open up for a race that I think I'm really excited to do, which is the Mozart Marathon in Salzburg.
Oh,
So I'm going to do it.
nice.
So
Oh, that's so exciting.
Yeah, I thought, why not? I actually shared this with Mike recently, and I said, I think I'm going to do the Mozart 100 marathon. And he was like, thank God you said marathon at the end of that, Lord. So I was like, yeah, no, I'm not going full in just yet. But that's the thing. I'm like, if I see something that excites me, I'll sign up and think about it later. And that is exactly my kind of mantra for anything: is sign up and think about what you need to do to get there later. So
I like that.
that's me. But like life in general, running supports life in general, and life in general supports running. And all I want to do is wake up and be happy. So I just want to do the things that wake me up and make me smile, which hopefully means more Leah and more Mike. So, and more Mama Sue.
And
But
Mama
who
too.
knows? Like, I think, as I enter into what I call my like second life in a career. I just want to do things that make me feel like I'm supporting folk as well. Supporting folk finding their dreams. Like, I had the opportunity to find my dreams. I've always had this wonderful dream come true moments in any job that I've done. So who knows what the future might bring, as long as it makes some kind of dream come true. That's kind of me.
Well, we love you, Lorna. This has been so nice. I think I speak for so many people when I say you're so special, and you've made this sport so special in itself. The way you celebrate other humans, the way you just go way outside the box to do what it takes to bring a smile to somebody's face. It's really special. And I think it's great to see whenever the sport's growing like it is. There's often divisiveness across many realms of the sport. And I think you're that spark of joy that I think we need a lot more of. So I think we're really lucky and fortunate to have someone like Lorna Mann in our lives.
Oh, well, I'm only that because there are people like you in it too. Like, it is circular. I'm afraid this energy comes from others. So I've got you to blame for it.
Well, this has been amazing, Lorna. I'm so grateful for your time, and excited to share a little bit of you with the world.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Chell Network podcast. As always, we love hearing from you. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, share, leave a review, or just send us a message on Instagram. We'll catch you next time.